Alexander III, the great conqueror, was born in the majestic city of Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedon. The exact date of his birth is uncertain, but it is believed to be around July 20th, 356 BC. He was the son of King Philip II of Macedon and his fourth wife, Olympias. Even as a young boy, Alexander showed remarkable potential. He received training in combat and horsemanship from Leonidas of Epirus, a relative of his mother, Olympias. Under Leonidas' guidance, Alexander learned the art of warfare and developed endurance through forced marches. His father, King Philip, sought to cultivate a refined future king, so he hired Lysimachus of Acarnania to teach Alexander reading, writing, and the lyre. This education instilled in Alexander a lifelong love for literature and music. At the age of 12, Alexander displayed incredible courage by taming a wild and furious stallion named Bucephalus. This mighty horse became his loyal companion throughout his life. When he was around 13 or 14 years old, Alexander had the privilege of being tutored by the renowned Greek philosopher Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander developed a deep appreciation for Greek culture and philosophy. Aristotle's teachings influenced Alexander's approach to the people he conquered, as he introduced Greek culture without forcing it upon them. Alexander's belief in his own divinity was instilled in him by his mother Olympias. She told him that he was the son of Zeus and that his birth was miraculous, associated with signs and wonders. Alexander embraced this belief, calling himself the son of Zeus and modeling his behavior after the legendary heroes Achilles and Hercules. Tragedy struck in 336 BC when Alexander's father, King Philip, was assassinated by his bodyguard. At just 20 years old, Alexander ascended to the Macedonian throne and swiftly eliminated any rivals to secure his sovereignty. He also quelled rebellions in northern Greece, following in his father's footsteps of expanding Macedon's dominance. With the support of his trusted general, Antipater, acting as regent, Alexander set his sights on Persia. Crossing the Hellespont, he faced Persian and Greek forces at the Granicus River and emerged victorious. His relentless march continued as he captured cities such as Sardes, Miletus, Mylasa, and Halicarnassus, encountering resistance along the way. Battles fought by Alexander. Battle of Issus. In the year 333 BC, Alexander and his soldiers faced a big Persian army led by King Darius III near a town called Issus in southern Turkey. Although Alexander's army had fewer soldiers, they had more experience and a strong desire for revenge and to take Persia's valuable treasures, which had been stolen. As the Battle of Issus went on, it became obvious that Alexander would win. King Darius III got scared and ran away with the soldiers who were still with him, leaving his wife and family behind. Darius' mother, Sisygambes, was so angry and disappointed that she disowned him and treated Alexander as her own son. At this point, it was clear that Alexander was a clever, tough, and amazing military leader. He never lost a battle in his entire life. With his motto, "There is nothing impossible to him who will try," he would go on to create a vast empire and achieve great things. Battle of Tyre. After conquering the Phoenician cities of Marathus and Aradus, Alexander didn't accept Darius' request for peace. Instead, he captured the towns of Byblos and Sidon. In January 332 BC, Alexander decided to lay siege to the island of Tyre, which was strongly fortified. The people of Tyre refused to let him enter their city, and since Alexander didn't have a navy, Tyre seemed impenetrable because it was surrounded by water. To overcome this challenge, Alexander ordered his men to construct a causeway or raised pathway to reach Tyre. Everything went smoothly until they approached the city walls, where the Tyrian forces repeatedly thwarted Alexander's clever tactics to gain entry. He realized that he needed a powerful navy to break through their defenses. Alexander gathered a large fleet, and in July 332 BC, they managed to breach the walls of Tyre. As a punishment for defying him, thousands of Tyrians were executed, and many others were sold into slavery. Alexander enters Egypt. After turning down yet another peace proposal from Darius, Alexander continued his journey towards Egypt. However, he faced a setback at Gaza, where he had to endure a long and difficult siege. Eventually, after several weeks, Alexander successfully captured the town and proceeded to enter Egypt. In Egypt, Alexander founded a city that he named Alexandria, which continues to exist to this day. It became an important center of trade, culture, and learning. Alexander becomes king of Persia. After conquering Egypt, Alexander faced Darius and his massive troops at Gaugamela in October 331 BC. Following fierce fighting and heavy losses on both sides, Darius fled and was assassinated by his own troops. It said Alexander was sad when he found Darius' body and he gave him a royal burial. Finally rid of Darius, Alexander proclaimed himself king of Persia. Proskynesis. To gain credibility with the Persians, Alexander took on many Persian customs. He began dressing like a Persian and adopted the practice of proskynesis, a Persian court custom that involved bowing down and kissing the hand of others, depending on their rank. The Macedonians were less than thrilled with the changes in Alexander and his attempt to be viewed as a deity. They refused to practice proskynesis and some plotted his death. Increasingly paranoid, Alexander ordered the death of one of his most esteemed generals, Parmenio, in 330 BC, after Parmenio's son Philotas was convicted of plotting an assassination attempt against Alexander and also killed. Alexander kills Clitus. In 328 BC, Alexander faced a tragic event involving his close friend and general, Clitus. Clitus grew frustrated with Alexander's adoption of Persian customs and began insulting him and belittling his achievements, fueled by his drunken state. Unable to bear Clitus's insults any longer, Alexander impulsively killed him with a spear, an act of violence that deeply pained him. Some historians attribute this outburst to Alexander's recurring issue of excessive drinking, which troubled him throughout his life. Alexander enters India. In 327 BC, Alexander marched on Punjab, India. Some tribes surrendered peacefully, others did not. In 326 BC, Alexander met King Porus of Parava at the Hydaspes River. Porus' army was less experienced than Alexander's, but they had a secret weapon, elephants. Even so, after a fierce battle and a raging thunderstorm, Porus was defeated. One event took place at Hydaspes which devastated Alexander, the death of his beloved horse, Bucephalus. It's unclear if he died from battle wounds or of old age, but Alexander named the city of Bucephala after him. Alexander wanted to press on and attempt to conquer all of India, but his war-weary soldiers refused, and his officers convinced him to return to Persia. So Alexander led his troops down the Indus River and was severely wounded during a battle with the Mali. Some crazy things were done by Alexander. A mass wedding. In early 324 BC, Alexander reached the city of Susa in Persia. Wanting to unite the Persians and Macedonians and create a new race loyal only to him, he ordered many of his officers to marry Persian princesses at a mass wedding. He also took 2 more wives for himself. The Macedonian army resented Alexander's attempt to change their culture and many mutinied. But after Alexander took a firm stand and replaced Macedonian officers and troops with Persians, his army backed down. While Alexander the Great is often praised for his military genius and his role in spreading Greek culture, it is true that he engaged in brutal actions during his conquests. Here are some examples. Massacres and slaughter. In his campaigns, Alexander and his army often engaged in brutal warfare, leading to the deaths of thousands of soldiers and civilians. Cities that resisted his rule were often subjected to massacres, looting, and destruction. Destruction of Persepolis. After capturing the Persian capital of Persepolis in 330 BC, Alexander ordered the city to be sacked and set on fire. The destruction of Persepolis was seen as an act of revenge for the Persian invasion of Greece. It resulted in the loss of invaluable historical and cultural artifacts. Harsh punishments. Alexander was known to impose severe punishments on those who resisted his rule or betrayed him. He executed several prominent individuals, including his own officers, who were suspected of disloyalty or rebellion. Forced assimilation. Alexander sought to spread Greek culture throughout the lands he conquered. This often involved forcibly imposing Greek customs, language, and religious practices on the local populations. He encouraged intermarriage between his Macedonian soldiers and Persian women to promote cultural assimilation. Treatment of Bucephala. After the death of his beloved horse Bucephalus, Alexander ordered the slaughter of nearby tribes and the destruction of their settlements as a sacrifice to honor his horse. This act demonstrated a brutal disregard for human life. Death of Alexander. By 323 BC, Alexander was head of an enormous empire and had recovered from the devastating loss of his close friend Hephaestion. Thanks to his insatiable urge for world supremacy, he started plans to conquer Arabia. but he had never lived to see it happen. After surviving fierce battle, Alexander the Great died in June 323 BC at age 32. Some historians say Alexander died of malaria or other natural causes. Others believe he was poisoned. Either way, he never named a successor.